Welcome back. We're here on Syria TV. We're starting this interview with a new topic. After more than 12 years of war, a devastating earthquake, and a suffocating economic crisis, Syria continues to face one of the most severe and forgotten health emergencies, as well as humanitarian crises of our recent times. International sanctions, political instability, and the lack of prospects have left millions of people starving, while physical and social reconstruction still seems a long way off. In this complex and fragile situation, there are some organizations that continue to work tenaciously alongside the population. One of these is Pro Terra Sancto itself, an organization that has been present in Syria for years, especially in Aleppo, with support, hospitality, and reconstruction projects aimed at all communities without distinction. We discussed this with Jean-Francois Thierry, the project manager for Pro Terra Sancta in Syria and a deep connoisseur of the country's reality. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Good evening.
Good evening. Today, after years of war and economic crisis, what is daily life like for people in Syria? What are the main difficulties that a Syrian family faces in terms of work, healthcare, and also in accessing housing and essential goods?
Well, the situation is obviously still very complicated. Well, a lot of promises were made when the new government came to power. One of the most absurd promises I remember was the pledge that within 10 years, all taxis would be electric, running on electricity. But there isn't even electricity for the people, so it was really just an empty promise. Even now, there still isn't electricity. Even now, people live with just 3 or 4 hours of electricity a day, and can you imagine how? Some things have been resolved. For example, now you can find it, but you pay $1 per liter. You can get gas now, which you couldn't find before. But the banks, for example, still don't work. Yes, they say the sanctions have been lifted, but there's still no cash in the banks. So for example, you can't withdraw more than $50, up to $50 a week. This also hurts the economy because you can't make payments by bank transfer. And yes, the salaries of officials have been tripled, but even though that money goes into bank accounts, it's still very complicated. Food is available. It's always been available at high prices, but there's no problem finding something to eat. If there's a problem, it's finding the money to buy it. Medicines are available. They're all medicines made here in Syria. Let's say the sanctions have led to the development of the pharmaceutical industry, though not always with good quality. Certain medicines, especially those for cancer, still can't be found in Syria and have to be imported from other countries. The healthcare system is a bit overwhelmed. Many facilities were closed after the last revolution, and the cost of surgeries, for example, is very high and unaffordable for many people.
What concrete activities is Pro Terra Sancta carrying out to help the Syrian population? I mean, through which facilities, projects, or even collaborations are you able to reach people in need?
We have been here on the ground in Syria for many years, since the beginning of the war, and so we have a network that reaches the most vulnerable, which is now well established. As Pro Terra Sancta, we work in support of the Latin Church and the custody of the Holy Land. But obviously, not to support our own, but the most vulnerable. That is precisely the mission of the Franciscans here, who sit alongside everyone else. The projects are requested by the emergency management, which must be carried out. For example, We have a soup kitchen that provides 1,000 hot meals every day to the poorest people in the city. We also produce 650 kilos of bread every day, which also goes to those most in need, including, for example, the Sisters of Mother Teresa, orphanages, or other canteens. And we also provide medical support and assistance for the collaborations that need to be carried out. These are truly emergency projects where, let's say, we are plugging holes, so to speak. Then, we have development projects which, in my opinion, are the most important at this point in history, because Syria needs to be rebuilt from many different perspectives. Ours is obviously just a drop in the ocean of need, but to me it's exemplary, and I truly believe it helps people hold on to hope. And the development projects also include repairing homes or installing solar panels on houses to provide electricity all day long, so that students can study even at night, or so mothers can take care of their children. We also support the development of small businesses. We helped 20 of them last year and 20 this year. People who want to start their own business, we help them not only with material support, but also by giving them the skills to develop their business, by training them to manage their business afterwards. Another project that I think is really wonderful is a soccer academy we started 2 years ago, and we have 300 children training at this academy. It's so beautiful to see the children's smiles, their joy at being able to take part in this. It's truly like giving them hope for the future. This year, we also have two groups of women and girls who play soccer.
How wonderful.
Of course, we work and try to collaborate with other NGOs as well, to encourage cooperation with organizations like AVSI, for example, or other local NGOs with whom we are carrying out certain projects.
The media shows us a Syria that is devastated, marked by poverty and pain. But as you were just telling us, there are also stories of hope, positive examples, seeds of reconstruction. In your opinion, what are the signs that allow us to look to the future with confidence? What are these signs?
Well, yes, there are so many stories that really lift your spirits, because otherwise you might only focus on what's missing. Let me tell you a little story about a meeting I had last week with a young man named, who is 30 years old and studies medicine at the University of Aleppo. He comes from the city of Doma. So, Doma in Doma, Guda. I think we've all heard about these cities very close to Damascus, which were surrounded for many years, bombed by the Assad regime because that's where the rebels, the terrorists, were. That's the general narrative. And chemical weapons were also used against these two cities. He comes from this city and he told us how he was 7. He started doing some volunteer work for Doctors Without Borders for a month. After a month, he was arrested. 2 reasons. He was accused for 2 reasons. First, because he came from that city. Second, because he was working with Doctors Without Borders. He spent 3 years in prison, then he was released in 2020. I asked him, but don't you want to take revenge? Since now you are the ones in power, I mean, Assad and his people are no longer in power, do you want to take revenge? And he told me, look, revenge only brings violence. It multiplies violence. I don't want that. I think we need to forgive. Sorry, but you, a Muslim, are talking to me about forgiveness? Yes, this is written in the Quran. We must forgive. If someone has wronged you, let him go with his wrongdoing. And so, instead of seeking revenge, he is dedicating himself to educating the young people of this city, Duma, teaching English, because he speaks English, together with a group of other volunteers, helping the youth pass their school exams. You see, when I meet people like this, I really feel like saying, come on, let's walk together, let's go a bit of the way together, let's also try to support your work. And there are so many examples like this here in Syria. I think that's what allows you to lift your gaze again and start over, right there among the ruins, but with a positive outlook and without giving in to despair. As Cardinal Pizzaballa told us, despair is a...
Let's talk now about what the international community can actually do today to support Syria. What urgent actions are needed to meet the needs of the population and start a path toward renewal? Where should this renewal begin today?
So, you're talking to me about the international community that has played an important role during the crisis of these past years. So I would say that before anything else, we should ask the international community not to play dirty games in this country, but to truly support the living forces, peace. I think that unfortunately the international community, though it's actually very complicated to say who they are, the Russians, the Iranians, Turkey, Europe, America, what are their real interests? So what we would ask them, I think, first of all, is not to continue to suffer, to take the oxygen away from this society and to remove the people who need to be removed. Certainly, also to improve the place, the role that UNESCO plays within the schools. Regarding what we don't like to call minorities, but rather the various communities present here, because of course we remember the attack on June 22nd of this year when 25 people died in a church in Damascus. But we can also recall all the deaths on the coast in Latakia, and these are the result of the work of armed groups coming from abroad, unfortunately, and they are still, even today, supported by international powers. So, first, don't play dirty games. Second, lift the sanctions. And third, give this economy a chance to recover. There are projects, for example, by the government, which is doing a good job too, but also to help restore the heritage in Damascus, for example, and also to develop the economy and support the most vulnerable. I think that now, in some way, they can start to make up for the harm they've done over the past years and help this economy here to get going again. Because if the economy recovers, obviously there will be jobs for everyone and a well-being that will continue to grow.
And so, from the words of Jean-Francois Thierry, what emerges is a Syria that is wounded but not resigned. Despite the deep crisis, there are still signs of hope. People, communities that resist, that hold on and try to rebuild. I really want to thank you for your testimony and for joining us here today. Truly, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to who continue to follow us on Syria TV. I'll be back shortly with a new segment. Stay with us.